In 1915, football returned to the University of California campus. 1 year later, with the arrival of Andrew Latham Smith, the face of Cal football would be changed forever. While Stanford continued playing rugby rather than football through the 1918 season, Andy Smith's Golden Bears were building a gridiron dynasty that would dominate college football in the years ahead.
In 1920, the great days of the Wonder Team began. In 1920, it won every game. And people were astonished. In 1921, again they won every game. In 1922, a perfect season. In 1923, for 4 years, California and Andy Smith with his Wonder Teams won every game.
I think Andy Smith was one of the great football coaches of all time. Andy Smith had a way of talking to his players at the half and getting them fired up, and they came out and played, and usually they won.
Andy was a marvelous person, and he knew what he wanted, and he got it. I learned a lot from him, not only in football, but in being a real person. You couldn't help but love him.
The Wonder Team had arrived in Berkeley, and wonderful they were. Andy Smith's Bears would play 50 straight games without a loss, including a Rose Bowl win against Ohio State, a first-ever national championship, and 5 straight big game victories over Stanford. 1923 brought the Bears a new permanent home in Strawberry Canyon. Completed just prior to the big game, California christened Memorial Stadium by downing the Cardinals 9-0. 3 decades of big game football had been played, and for the first time, the series was deadlocked at 12 wins each with 5 ties. 1924 brought legendary coach Pop Warner to the Stanford campus, and the Cardinals' football fortunes were about to change. Led by All-American Ernie Nevers, Stanford was 7-0 going into the big game against the 7-0-1 Bears. Because of what was considered a tougher schedule, Cal was a slight favorite to win both the big game and another conference championship. But Stanford appeared to have a different outcome in mind. A seesaw battle had the favored Bears in the lead late in the fourth quarter, but a Stanford score and successful conversion gave the Cardinals a moral victory and a 20-20 tie. Some Stanford fans say that the 1924 tie was one of the most exciting big games in history. But for the Golden Bears, it was wait until next year. Little did they know what 1925 would hold in store for the University of California. Soon after his first big game loss to Pop Warner's Indians, Andy Smith went east, where he became ill with pneumonia and died suddenly at the age of 43. Fittingly, his funeral was held outside Memorial Stadium, the place that many of his admirers had christened the house that Andy built.
With a locked stadium and a huge crowd standing silently out in front of it, the airplane circled overhead, then it dipped low, and as it passed over the locked and silent stadium, it scattered the ashes of Andy Smith, as he had wished, over the field where he had worked and fought his battles, there to remain forever in the good earth.
With Andy Smith gone, replaced by Cal assistant Nibs Price, and Pop Warner firmly in charge of the Stanford football program, there were precious few bright spots for Cal fans in the 1926 through 1930 big games. But 1928 was surely one of them. Led by All-American center Roy Riegels and star halfback Benny Lam, the Bears brought an undefeated conference record into the big game. Stanford was called a 6-point favorite, but Cal knew that a victory or tie would give them the Rose Bowl bid. That seemed to be incentive enough for the Golden Bears. In what was becoming a typical big game finish, the game came down to the last few minutes. A blocked Stanford conversion attempt gave Cal a 13-13 tie and a trip to Pasadena.